So hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is, of course, Adventures in Woo Woo. And in this episode, we have a talk about black magic. See what you come up with, and then act on it. We also do an experiment where we see if water offered to a god, or a god form, evaporates at the same rate as water just left on a shelf. Unless, of course, Baphomet takes offence to the whole thing, destroys the experiment. This is interspersed with a number of vlog type bits where I just talk about my life really. And he literally just stood looking at me, gawping at me. And then if you're on Patreon level 2 or above, you get an extra 25-30 minutes almost of a talk about Liber Null, where we delve deep into that Chaos Magic book, that foundational Chaos Magic book by Peter Carroll. It's almost in a sense as if they're other people's, but you know, I haven't claimed them as my own. There you go, there's an insight from me. So, let's get into it. So, 4 episodes done. This is the 5th episode, and one of the things I've noticed about the previous episodes is that it's an awful lot less conversational or ad hoc than the podcast was. That it seems a bit more, not forced is the right word, but a bit more possibly rehearsed or structured or stiff. I kind of feel I'm a bit stiff in it because I'm trying too hard, I suppose, not to fuck up, not to make mistakes, not to go ums and ahs and all these things, and it's a bit rigid and I feel a bit wooden. And what I would really prefer the whole thing to be is a bit more conversational, a bit more kind of just me going about doing my things, just talking as normal, as if you were in the room with me, I would be talking to you, rather than giving a presentation. And I think the first couple of episodes were a bit more like, for the most part, a bit more like giving a presentation than actually just conversation. So I'm going to try and work on that a bit more, be a bit more conversational, a bit less formal, and a bit more umsy and ahsy, I suppose, a bit more relaxed. That's what I'm looking for. So let's see how that goes. So over the last couple of days I've been thinking about the whole idea of black magic and white magic and left hand path and right hand path and that all that kind of delineation that you have in occult that is meant to have kind of disappeared in chaos magic circles, but I think still retains some of its kind of borderisms or its kind of dogma in a sense, even within chaos magic. And it's something that I kind of, if I thought about it or someone asked me, I'd say I don't particularly believe in, or I don't follow that, or I don't think in those terms. But there's part of me that when I really investigate and have a look at it, that really does think in those terms. And that's kind of, not in a way shocking, but it's another one of those things that you realise that you have these thoughts or you have these beliefs or you have these ideas, in a sense, unbeknownst to yourself, or at least it's not fully conscious, but they're things on you act on. They're almost like presuppositions that until you actually see them, you don't realise that, you know, it's kind of a baseline mantra or belief that you have, that you approach these things. Kind of the rule or the definition of black magic versus white magic is black magic would be kind of baneful magic, or, you know, bad magic, doing bad things, but it also kind of incorporates things like selfish magic or doing things for your own pleasure or for your own good. And this is an awful lot kind of seems to have crept in, from what I can see, talking in my own life, from some sort of like guilt, Catholic guilt, or growing up thinking that you shouldn't have the things you want, or you shouldn't get the things you want, for one reason, because it's somewhat morally wrong to have good things, or, you know, to want things for yourself, that, you know, you should be more like, in a sense, I think, like Jesus, where, you know, you should let go of all these material things. You shouldn't want things for yourself, you should only want for other people, and that you, in a sense, are kind of insignificant, and that you're only here and your true path is, you know, to help others, and your needs or your wants are, you know, wrong to want or to pursue. And kind of the second thing that we also have, or at least I have, is this idea that even if you get the thing you want, it's somehow cursed. To get the thing you want, to follow, to find your dream or to succeed in your dream, ultimately will lead you to more despair than it would that if you didn't have it. Like, we have to be careful of what you wish for, because it might come true, and when it comes true, it'll be horrible, not what you actually want. So you kind of, there's this double-edged sword within my head that not only is it in some sense morally wrong to pursue the things that you want or desire, particularly material things or things that are just for your own happiness or just for you alone to get value of. And two, that even if you get them, the kind of getting good things are cursed in a sense because of the idea of that it'll, you know, getting the thing you want will nip you in the, you know, it'll backfire on you, it'll bite you in the arse, it'll all, you know, it's actually not what you wish for, you know. What's the thing of when you, many of your dreams are fulfilled. I never forget, I would never remember this quote. It's from the end of Marilyn Manson. Many of your dreams are come true, lots of your dreams will be destroyed. Something like that. Something along the line of when you get what you want, your life will turn to shit because you'll have ruined, you know, there'll be some sort of underhanded disaster that will come with getting what you want. And there is a sense in that, and I do believe there is a good logic in that, but not fully to the full amount of the way I kind of have it embedded in my brain. It's like a thing I talked about in a previous episode about when you turn your passion or your artistic side into a job, and you do change the nature of it. And so in a sense, when you get your dream of becoming an artist, it is kind of ruined because it has become a job, and it's different from what you imagined in your head being an artist would be. Kind of, you know, like that. There is a logic to that, and I do understand that. But I don't think it happens all the time. I don't think getting everything you want is inherently coupled with the fact that you know, your life will fall apart because of it. I don't think finding your true love is necessarily coupled with your life falling apart, although it seems to be for an awful lot of people. In that, I remember someone telling me that isn't it so strange that most people marry the person they hate most in the world, and I mean, like, the divorce rates of 50% and stuff like that, but neither here nor there. So in this kind of thing of black magic, kind of all of it put together between baneful magic, where we're attacking people or trying to destroy people or, you know, ruin things in other people, curses, all of that kind of stuff, and also getting things that you want for yourself, whether it be material, emotional, spiritual, or whatever, and all of that is seen as the work of the devil in a sense, and it's all mixed in with demonology and, you know, darkness and evil, and I think that most of that probably does come from the whole church thing of seeing that anything that isn't of God is evil. And so, you know, unless you're pious and in poverty and have, you know, only pure intentions for other people, and, you know, think not of yourself, only thinking of others, that's all of the devil's work, and it's all stuff to be, you know, feel bad about and shunned and put over in the corner. Whereas white magic is, oh, you know, it's all light and love, and you're healing, and you're doing good stuff for other people, clearing, banishing, getting rid of negativity, all of this kind of stuff. It's never selfish, it's never for your own good, it's also for the good of others, or the highest good. And we have things like in the Wiccan Rede, where you have the idea that ain't it harm none, do as thou wilt. And I feel like, how could you do any magic under that circumstance? I know people do, but from the point of view of, like, there's no thing that you can really do that in some way isn't infringing on something else. It's just at what level you want it. Ain't it harm none? Is it ain't it harm no human? But I mean, even down to, like, if you're trying the least amount of trying to do the least amount of harm, say to animal kingdom, and you become a vegan or something like that, even cutting of the grains of the vegetables, whatever, there's going to be a large number of animals or insects or whatever that's destroyed in that kind of way. So unless you're, you know, doing it all yourself, and even then you're probably going to be infringing, like, in some way. So ain't it harm none? How do you do that? I've never found a satisfying answer. I hope that if there's some Wiccans out there who have, you know, got their head around it, which I'm sure there is, because try to explain it to me how you can follow that to the ladder, or do you just not? Is it just it's a guideline and all that? Now, of course, Aleister Crowley's version of it is do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and that's a whole other ball game. We'll not get into it now, but it's kind of interesting to me that doing stuff for yourself, forget putting aside all the curse and the baneful stuff for a minute, but just doing for yourself is seen as dark, black magic. And yet, what's the whole point of getting into magic unless you're going to do some cool stuff and get some cool stuff yourself, and, you know, work your life out and improve your life circumstances. That's kind of an awful lot of thing that attracts people to magic. I've said before that very few people come to magic because their life is great. People come to magic because their life's a bit shit, or it's falling apart, or they're looking for something. Maybe that be money or love, which is the two most kind of common things that people come to magic for. Or the third being, the kind of search for meaning that people want, having looked in different religions or different kind of philosophies and not found anything. And magic, particularly chaos magic, gives you a sense of control, puts you at the center of the universe, which is what really attracts it to me. And I think that even though I would come from that kind of philosophy or that kind of perspective, or that reality tunnel of chaos magic, which is to put you at the center of the universe, it's a subjective magic. You see the world subjectively, and it's almost solipsistic in many ways, but it's not. It's more like, the way I see it, is more idealism to solipsism, but it's kind of all mangled in there. But you is the center of the universe, and yet there's kind of, in my head, there's these kind of trails or these kind of hang-ups about doing black magic, doing stuff for myself, doing stuff that for purely selfish reasons. And I decided that how I was going to battle this and come across this would be to do a month where I only do black magic, bunny ears, where I was only going to do selfish magic, stuff for myself. I'm not into the baneful magic or cursing or any of that, and just because I prefer banishing, get rid of people, than I do of keeping a sustained relationship with them by cursing them, and that energetically, for want of a better word, continues to connect you, whereas I just rather get rid of people. So it's just not something I'm interested in. But I don't necessarily have a moralistic view in it. I think do as thou wilt, in the sense of do whatever you want. That's your prerogative. But I probably do have a kind of a moralistic thing in the sense of what I'm talking about here, that I still kind of think it's it's black magic in some level. But so what I'm going to do is this month, as I say, of just selfish magic, and really work on the things that I want, without fear of it all going wrong, without fear of being morally judged, without guilt, as much as possible. It's not an overnight thing where you're suddenly going to change your entire consciousness or your whole feeling about this thing. And I think what I learned from this is, number one, I will learn what I want, what I actually want. If I take all the boundaries off it and all the rules and all the guilt and all that, and I will see, what do I actually want? And that's one of the hardest questions I've ever found. And I've never truly found an answer to it, of what you want. When I joined BOTA originally, one of the first things to do to ask you is, you come up with your one aim. What is it that you want? I find it very hard to come up with it, because I don't truly know. I know an awful lot of what I don't want. But actually, if you, in one sentence, what do you want? What your life is what you want. And I think one of the reasons why that is for me is because I have all of these kind of hang-ups of that it's wrong, in some sense, to get what you want. And even if you do get what you want, that it's going to backfire, or it's going to make things worse. So getting what you want necessarily is going to destroy your life, or it's going to make it worse, and all that kind of things we talked about earlier. So I'll find out what I want. I will also find out what my hang-ups are, where I truly, where my guilt lies. Like if I go, well, I want this certain thing, and I go, oh, you can't, because this infringes on this person, or this infringes on this, or this is, wrong, or whatever. And I'll bring to the forefront my different shadow stuff I have around of why I can't have what I want. And maybe that might be around money, it might be around success, it might be around stress, depression, or what any of the things that will come out. And it'll still be interesting. I'll say, of course, I won't like the answer, because you don't like the answer you get from shadow work, or else, because if you did, it wouldn't be shadow work. It'd be stuff that you'd be proud of. It's like, but when you start dredging this stuff up, it gets, you get to see, as I say, how much of an asshole you are, and then you have to work through it. The good side of shadow work, though, is that when you get to the realization of just how much of an asshole you are, there's a double kind of bit to it, where you realize, and then there's a huge relief that you don't have to be like that anymore. So it's like, as horrible as it is in the realization, there is a kind of a payoff to it, where where you can relax, and there's a part of you that just kind of goes, oh, finally, I can be me, I can be a bit more me. So what will a month of black magic entail? Well, it'd mean deciding once and for all, what is it I want, without concerning myself with how it will affect other people, how it will affect how people see me, how it will affect you know, my soul, my spirituality, my path, how it will affect me, you know, like in how I view myself or whatever, and just let my mind go and come up with all these things that I want. Just even already thinking about, there's parts of my brain going, oh, this is a bad idea, you know, this is going to make you a bad person. And that's only trying to come up with the things and let my brain release and all of these kind of come out. So that's interesting. So a month of black magic, I know it's a terrible name, of course, but all of these kind of cliche names like black magic in chaos magic, for me anyway, I kind of, they're terms that we can employ rather than, you know, follow in any kind of a dogma. But I think it's a month of black magic is a good descriptor, if nothing else. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in doing, just to see where your boundaries are, where your guilt lies, to see what you truly want if you put yourself with no holds barred, moralistically, or with the idea that getting what you want isn't going to backfire on you, and see what you come up with, and then act on it. And that, like, because the coming up with it could be challenging in many ways, but then following through on it, like do the sigils for the things you want, do the rituals, say your prayers, call up your demons, do whatever it is, and actually act on some of these things, and see at what point where you can't, where you go, that's too much, I can't act on that, and then investigate that even further on why you can't. What's the shadow? What's the guilt? What's the hang up? What's the thing that's in your brain or in your psyche or in your consciousness that is stopping you? What's the belief behind it all that's saying this is wrong to do? And just investigate and see where it leads you. So I'm looking forward to it. I will report back in a month's time on how I did, and we'll see how it goes. It should be interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. A selfish black magic month. How much more magic can you get? One thing I've noticed when I do these videos, and it's so strange, is I pull back from the camera a lot and do this kind of a, hey, talk like this. I mean, imagine I did that in real life if you were talking to me. Or go, yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about these things, and I just want to share them with you. What is that? Is it kind of scared of the camera, afraid of something? I mean, it's probably a bit out of focus now because I haven't set up right, but like, that's much more. What is this? What? I don't know. I'm a strange fish, but I suppose it's like it's another thing. I learn to get better. There's probably a lot of rules that you shouldn't do that, but I do notice it's this weirdo. Yeah, alright. Music is here. I know I kind of joked about it in an earlier episode about not having anywhere where I could be on my own or there wasn't any noise, but it's starting to really get to me. It's starting to really grate on me. There's nowhere I can go where I can be on my own or not be surrounded very closely by loud noise or by people. Like today I was going to do some filming and I was in Dundalk, the town over from where I live, and I went to a lovely big park, St. Helena's Park, and it's like really nice park, but it's just literally right beside the main road, so it's super noisy. And I was kind of going, right, okay, I can kind of work that around that using a lapel mic and stuff like that. But as I got to it and I was sitting, or even setting up just the camera, there was a guy who was walking down, he was doing, I don't know what exactly, doing some sort of maintenance. And he literally just stood looking at me, gawping at me. And I was like staring back and I'm kind of going, well, what do you want? What's your issue here or whatever? And it's just like made me really uncomfortable and really kind of, and it wasn't that he was saying anything, I don't think he was even realising he was looking at me. In a sense, like I knew he was looking at me, but he was in a stare, and I was just going, can I just find somewhere where there isn't people, where there's no one else and there isn't noise? It's like, I'm finding it very hard to think of a place or to think of somewhere or come up with somewhere where it's just not people, where there just isn't people. I'm not sure it exists anymore, and I live in Ireland, which is definitely, not the most industrial of all places. And I live in the countryside. I live in a small sort of town, stroke village, depending on what way you want to look at it. I still can't get away from it. Can't get away from people. There's no part of my life where there isn't just people hanging around in some way. And it's very hard. And I'm not saying I want to leave me on my own forever. I want to be alone or I want to be a hermit, as much as that sounds appealing an awful lot of time. What I mean more is just some time on my own, where I'm literally on my own, where there's no one around me, that I'm not going to be disturbed, where there isn't going to be a road, no more than 10 foot away from me at all times. And I just don't think that exists anymore. I think one of the things that we're coming up going to really have to deal with from a population point of view and from social point of view, is that we're not going to be able to ever be on our own ever again. And I think that's going to have some severe impact on people's mental health and personal space, and particularly if you're an introvert and you need to be away from people to recharge and to gather your strength to put up with people or to put up with life or to that kind of thing. You know, it's just, I find it tough. And that's not to say I could dislike being around people or I hate people or I don't like being around people. It's just I do need to be on my own, and I can't think of a time where I've been truly on my own in the last forever. Like that I'm always beside, you know, roads where there's, no matter where I am, there's people passing in cars, trucks, or I'm out for a walk, even in the country, and there's people about. Even in the house at any moment, you know, you could, like anytime you go to sit down to do anything, you know, the cats, the dogs, they're all about, they're looking for your attention. At the minute the cat's going insane over there because there's a door closed, and how dare there be a door closed in the house. And then, you know, there's always people calling, there's all this thing, there's a preschool in the house and it's just, I just need some time of my own, and I don't think that is going to exist anymore. And I just have to get on with it and just have to learn to deal with it. Fact of modern life. One of the things I like to try to instill into people, and myself included in this because I often forget it, is the need, or at least the good idea it is, to keep record and to keep track of your different things that you do magically. And one of the reasons is that it's very easy to forget what you've done, or very easy to just kind of look back at something and have an opinion on it and see something that that you think may have not worked when in reality it did work, or see something that you thought did work and then when you look through your notes go, oh, that didn't work, or at least not in the way I thought. Particularly when there seems to be some process by the universe, by consciousness, whatever it is, that tries to normalize magic, normalize magic, or the perception of having an effect of magic having happened gets normalized very quick by the universe. So keeping records is very important. One of the things that I kind of have in my head that I want to kind of test, and it's not a scientific test, it's not a control, it's more of a fun test. So any of you skeptics out there, I realize this isn't a scientific test, it's a fun test. Using somewhat scientific methods, but not really. Don't, you know, calm down, don't worry. We're not destroying your science. You can keep your science. And one of the things I have is that I tend to see, like say, liquids that I give as offerings evaporate quicker than normal, that it seems to have a bit of woo-woo-ness to it. And it's kind of just always been in the back of my mind. I kind of go, that's interesting. But I'm going to test it. I'm going to see if it is actually true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer the same amount of water to Baphomet that I'm going to not do anything with. And it's going to be on two separate shelves but in very close proximity to each other. So the ambient temperature, the sun, all of that should be exactly the same. And then after a week, I'm going to measure to see if Baphomet drank the water more than the books on my shelf did, or whether it just evaporated exactly the same rate. So it'd be interesting. Again, not conclusive of anything. If it does turn out that Baphomet takes more water, it's just more of an interesting thing than actually proof of anything, and I'm not out to prove anything, but it's just something that I wanted to do. So here is my altar as it stands presently. It changes every so often, but this is mostly how it's laid out, and it has been for the last while. And here in front are the two glasses I'm going to use for the offering. O great Baphomet, the microcosm and the macrocosm, the Salve et Coagula, I offer you this water. I hope that it may be acceptable to you, and I hope you find nourishment or pleasure from it. So as you can see, water right up to the top. And on this shelf, I'm just going to put the other glass with water that hasn't been offered to anyone. Just going to hang out in the same kind of temperature and sunlight and that sort of thing. So tune in next week to see what happens. Unless, of course, Baphomet takes offence to the whole thing, destroys the experiment by unleashing some sort of wind into my office that knocks over both containers of water, destroying my books in the process. Unless that happens, which I doubt will happen. What I will suspect will happen is that both pieces of water will disintegrate or evaporate even at the exact same rate. But we'll see. We'll see. It's put my UPG to the test. And that's it. That's another episode. Thank you very much for watching, or thanks very much for at least watching some of it. A lot of people are telling me that they enjoy the fact that I leave the contents or the timestamps for the different parts on YouTube and on the podcast page, so you can jump from, to the section you want. So if you're a section jumper, you're still welcome around here. That's why I put it there, for people who don't want to listen to me ramble on for half an hour. I totally understand it. So if you want to know more about me, you can go to adventuresinwooboo.com, and that'll bring you to my blog, to that's basically the hub of all things. It kind of has all the links to all the different social medias, to the 47 stuff, to the YouTube, to the podcast. All of the stuff is there, so just check that out. If you want to support me and help me to continue to do this stuff and even up my game, there is now a new support page on the website that you can click on, and it'll detail all the different things that you can do to help me out, from the Patreon to buying something off my wish list to just sharing stuff to your friends and annoying your friends with my stuff that they probably aren't into. So, good people of the internet, may you have a wonderful week. May something exceptionally special happen to you, a small thing that'll just make you smile, that'll seem like a wink from the universe, like you go, oh look, magic does work. And there is, just some little tiny thing that just pushes you over the edge and gives you a boost for the day and a boost for the week and keeps you going for a bit longer. So, good people, be well.